Hi, welcome back. It's Rachel, and I'm glad you could join me for another book chat. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of focusing on a genre, I'm going to focus on an author. And so a lot of times we have certain authors that we just like. And so I will actually, today I had somebody ask me for a book recommendation on Facebook. And there were a couple authors where I said, any book by this author. And I'm going to do that today. This is an author whom I highly recommend. And those people who are my friends know that this is an author I highly recommend. And I speak of none other than Mr. Jason Reynolds. Jason Reynolds is somebody that I did get to meet once. It was wonderful. He's a great speaker. And you can catch him online. He regularly speaks and does a lot of things online. And this year he is the young adult literature ambassador for ALA, and so he's doing a lot of stuff right now through the Library of Congress, and you can look for him on Instagram as well, and you will see him doing things. If you are a young adult, definitely check it out. You're going to find some cool stuff. But I'd like to give a shout out to him because what I like about Jason, before I just launch into some of his books, 'cause I'm not going to go and touch on every one of them. What I like about Jason Reynolds is when I read his books, I feel like I am that age again. It feels very authentic to me. It reminds me of being the age of the protagonist in the book. It reminds me of my friends. I see myself, I see my friends in his books. And it doesn't feel like a pretense. Sometimes when you pick up a book and you read it, yeah, you feel like it is an adult trying to write for somebody who is younger than them. And so I like his books because they feel real. And I also enjoy the stories incredibly. Like I said, it reminds me of a lot of things with my friends. And that kind of says a lot because I am a white woman and he is, he is a black man. So I don't know how he does it, but it feels like it fits me. So first I want to talk about when I was the greatest. I love this cover too. And in case you can't tell, this won the Coretta Scott King Award. And take a look. You see there definitely the outline shape of a gun. I like pointing out covers because especially if it's a good one. This is a good one. And you see that it looks like something is knitted or crocheted over it. It's interesting, right? It's interesting, and you read this and you will discover why. Now, this is told from the point of view of a young man named Ali. And Ali has two best friends, and they are brothers. And all three of them go by nicknames. So Ali is not the name that he is born with, but is the name that he is called by. And his two best friends, they're brothers, but all three of them together are really brothers. This is the tightness of their friendship. And I know that this is something many of us can relate to. So his friends are Noodles and Needles. And you discover how they all get their names. Okay? And Noodles and Needles get their names from Ali's little sister. And I'm not going to share how because they're great stories. But Ali, I will obviously tell you, if you don't know, when I was the greatest, it's referring to Muhammad Ali. So Ali himself loves to box. And this is how he has his name. And you learn that right out from the get-go. This is really about friendship at its ultimate core. And it's about these young men and what goes on in their lives. Now, the neighborhood they live in is not the easiest of neighborhoods. And Noodles has got a mouth on him. Either you're the one in a friendship that has the mouth or you know somebody who has the mouth. I'm not going to say what kind of friend I am. But you can relate to that. Now, Needles has his own issues. Needles has tics. Okay? For some of us, we might know this as Tourette's syndrome. And sometimes this can cause problems, but the people that live in their hood know that this is something that Needles has. But what happens when you find yourself out of your own neighborhood and the people who know you? That's what When I Was the Greatest is about. The choices that you end up making, where you end up finding yourself. And of course, you see the image of the gun here. Sometimes it leads you to consequences that you may not expect. And how do you handle yourself? When I Was the Greatest is about friendship, but not just friendship, it's about brotherhood. And it's about how do you stick together and how do you stay together. It is an excellent book about what all of that means. When I Was the Greatest. The next is a series. And I know a lot of people are familiar with it. And for some, this is when they first really saw Jason Reynolds on the map. But I always love it for some authors who've been writing for years. Suddenly it's like, where you been? And I've been here a long time. And that was the case for Jason Reynolds, who'd been writing for a while before he suddenly, it seemed like he appeared on the scene. So I'm going to show you all of them. Look at how pretty they look. And you see on their spines, you line them all up here. Okay, you see all of the characters. Now, the first one is Ghost, which, of course, now that I lined it up for me, realize is not for you. Second is Patina. Third is Sunny. And the fourth is Lou. Okay? And these are fantastic covers. I just do love these covers. So here's Ghost, Patina, Sunny, guy has some dad, and then Lou. All right, and it also carries through on the back side here. You see Coach. All right, on each of these. So here you see Ghost taken off, and on the back side, okay, the rest of the relay team. So I'm just going to focus on Ghost. But trust me, this is going to be something where if you start this, you are going to want to finish this. They're not very long. Okay, so it's not like an intimidating series. We have talked about in the past how I am not a so-called athlete. Yet I found myself really interested in this. I've also never been a runner. Okay, never. Like when you do those things, like I'm gonna see how far I can get to the end of the block. Like I might do one of those, especially if there's gonna be some money involved because you could always use some money. But for the most part, no. Now, Ghost is about that's his nickname, Ghost. And I like the fact that there's nicknames in a lot of these books because I think that's true for a lot of us. Like we go by our call names and whatever someone might call us. And Ghost starts off right away with something traumatic. And I'm not gonna say it because I feel like it gives you that pow right in the beginning. One thing I will comment on that I've heard Jason Reynolds say more than once when speaking is he himself wasn't much of a reader when he was. I've heard him say this many times when he was younger because he didn't see many books that reflected him. He loved hearing stories and things and music, and hip hop and rap and those things. But as far as picking up a book, not really. So for him, when he is writing and when he has a book, within the first few pages, you're going to find something that you're immediately like, say, what? What just happened? And that's definitely the case here in Ghost. Something happens right away. This traumatic event that happens to him. And ever since that moment, he's run. Okay? So what ends up happening is he's not from the best of neighborhoods. Okay? And he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of feel like I get why he does. And especially if, you're mixing with other people who seem to come from a better social circumstance than you, why not? Why not feel like you got to go ahead and show them that you're just as good? I also understand that feeling, and I think other people can too. So when he's coming back from a basketball practice, just, playing, with other friends, he sees what looks like people who are a little bit better off than him practicing for some relays and running. And he's like, shoot, I can run better than that. And so one day he decides he's going to go up against this other kid who ends up being Lou. Okay. So this kid right here, which is talked about in one of the other books. There are 4 kids in this relay. Okay, and what they are is they are practicing for the Junior Olympics. He does not know that, and he starts to run. And what do you know? He beats him. Mm-hmm. And the coach is intrigued. Coach is intrigued, and he goes to see if he can get him to play. Well, can he get him to play? Each of these books ends like, wait, where's the rest of my story? Where's the rest of my story? Now, lucky you, you're not like me, where you started reading this book and you're like, Mr. Reynolds, have you published the next book yet? Okay, because they are a little bit a cliffhanger. Because it picks up with the next character's point of view, and in this case, after Ghost, it's Patina, where you get the conclusion of that drop-off. Okay? But each of them is told from that character's point of view. And so even though you get to meet the characters, right, you don't get to see their point of view until the next. And all of a sudden you start realizing each of them has their own thing they're carrying, right? We all do. We all have our own thing we're carrying, but we don't necessarily know what that is or how that feels. And you get that in this track series, which is what it's called. So, Ghost. Highly recommend it. Start with the first one. This is not a series where you want to start just picking and choosing. I want to go with Patina. You really want to start with the first one because it helps to resolve that continuing storyline. All right? So the best thing I compare it to is like Lord of the Rings. You wouldn't start with the second book because you don't know what happened in the first part of the quest. All right? So you definitely want to start with the first one. The next book I want to share by Jason Reynolds is Long Way Down. And Long Way Down, mine isn't covered with stickers. If you got this one now, it'd be like, ooh, sticker. You barely see this kiss face, and then over here, okay. And Long Way Down, I'm not going to explain too much on because that would give too much away. But Long Way Down is it's a book that really makes you think. It's about Will and his older brother Sean. On the way home, this happens right off the bat. Will's brother Sean is shot and killed in the streets. And there are 3 rules in their neighborhood. And these may sound familiar to many of you who grew up in a similar neighborhood. Well, first of all, there's no snitching. Never. And there's no tears. Never. But revenge, there's always revenge. Will feels like he knows who did it. Feels like he knows who did it. And so, as he listens to his mama cry all night long in the kitchen, and he's laying in the bed, his own bed, in the same room he shared with Sean, still wearing the clothes that have some of his brother's blood on it, he knows where Sean keeps the gun. And Long Way Down, you see it looks like an elevator. Well, it's because early in the next morning, with his mother asleep at the kitchen table because she cried herself to sleep there, he gets the gun his brother owned, and he gets into the elevator. But you see what might feel like 60 seconds normally in an elevator going down from their tenement to the bottom floor is not just 60 seconds for Will. It's something else entirely. What choices do you make when it comes to looking for revenge? This is not straightforward contemporary, and I should also add, this is a story that is told in verse. And Jason Reynolds, if you do the audio, Jason Reynolds himself reads it, and it is compelling. And he also talks about the reason behind this story. It is one that makes you think about why people do what they do, why they might take those kinds of consequences in their hand, and that endless cycle of revenge, but why it's done. Long Way Down. And I'm going to talk about his latest, as of right now, Who knows? A lot of I've heard a lot of authors who are colleagues and friends of his tease him that he writes a book every week. But as of right now, this is his latest, and it's brilliant. It's called Look Both Ways. And this is, as you can tell, it's a tale told in 10 blocks. So basically, there are 10 stories in here. Um, and I loved it. And on the back, I like this too. How you gonna change the world? How you gonna change the world? Isn't that a great like writing prompt? I'm sorry, the English teacher in me is getting excited. I'll back off. But how are you gonna change the world? Now, look both ways. It doesn't take place in school. It doesn't take place at home. It's about, as Jason Reynolds put it, the walkers. Okay, so and this is takes place in a middle school setting, and I have to be honest, middle school was when I was walking home. Okay, so if any of my friends are listening to this who were walkers with me, you may remember the stuff that we got up to before parents entered the picture, and there were no teachers around to watch us, and what we got up to. The time in between being supervised by adults. And this follows the different paths on the way home of those walkers. And I don't want to talk too much about the different people, but there's one common thing, a school bus fallen from a sky, that appears in each of these stories. And the very last story ties all of them together. Otherwise, you could read these stories in any order, but that last story should be read last. But you follow them as they go on their way home. You find out why certain people who don't seem to fit together are brothers. And I don't mean just friends, brothers, but I'm talking, this is family. This is family. You find out why the funniest girl in the class, it's not just because she needs to be the class clown. It's because she's doing it to make someone in her life have a purpose. It's about the love and tenderness that you might share with a friend because they're everything for you. Oh, and it's about the silliness that you might get up to, that first crush. Oh, that first crush. What might you do for that first crush after school? It's about that anxiety that you might feel too. The worry if you're by yourself and you're walking home. Maybe you're new to the neighborhood. Maybe you're new to the country. Maybe you're not familiar with things. How do you get comfortable if those are all things that are just so new? It's about what it means to still be a kid, to be in that in-between stage when some maybe romantic relationships don't mean anything. Maybe they are starting to mean something. But the one thing that is definitely sure is friendship means everything. You know what love is. You roll your eyes at the schoolwork. Fights do happen. But at the end of the day, what it's about is discovering who you are. Looking both ways. Look both ways. And how are you going to change the world? Jason Reynolds' latest. Jason Reynolds keeps the dialogue real. And what I love about his books is anytime that I go into a book, I look for something that I feel makes me a kid again. It's hard because I'm an adult and I obviously, as immature as I might act, I obviously don't know what it's like anymore to be a kid. And so if I read something that taps me into that moment again, yes, Mom, I remember walking home from Sierra Intermediate School, and we stopped by Will's house, and sometimes we would just get into shopping carts and we would ram them because he lived right by a grocery store, and we'd ram them against the cement wall just to see if any of us would fly out of them. I remember doing that. Yeah, I remember those things. Look Both Ways reminds me of that feeling. not because someone in there does it, and not because I'm encouraging it, but because I felt free in the book. And I remember just the simple joy of being with people I loved. And I think that's what I love about Jason Reynolds, is that he reminds me of those pure, honest feelings, and the way that you talk with people that you enjoy being with. So, if you're looking for something that has authentic dialogue, that talks about those moments in between, those real moments that you actually retain, like, ask me, Trig, it's not going to happen. Ask me what I did with the shopping cart outside a Rouse grocery store. I'm going to remember. Jason Reynolds, he's your guy. And I recommend taking a look at his books. He primarily writes for middle school, and I know some upper elementary kids who have read like his track series, for example, as well as some of his other books. I have high schoolers who are reading Look Both Ways and were in love. And so I think that when you have someone who writes with integrity, and honesty and dialogue, and when it comes to the uniqueness of the individual, I think it transcends age. So remember, you have a story. Remember that it's important. Remember, I was not encouraging you to climb into a shopping cart and have your friends shove you against a cinder block wall. That would be very, very dangerous. And those were things that we did in the 80s when we were much more stupid. Until then, keep reading, keep shining, and keep sharing your story. Thank you.